Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. The pitch black sky was spreading from south of the city. At this moment, the black sky's forward progress seemed to slow a little, but the pressure that came from those clouds made everyone feel quite breathless. Shrek City's city defense army was hard at work on the city wall, and everyone was nervously setting up all sorts of defensive soul tools. Shrek City hadn't participated in a war for many years, but the city defense army was very organized and disciplined. The pressure that came from the sky made everyone ghastly pale, but they grit their teeth and continued with whatever they had to do. There were 100,000 people in Shrek City's army, 30% of them were soul masters. Most of these soul masters had graduated from Shrek Academy's outer courtyard, and they chose to enlist in the city defense army when they failed to enter the inner courtyard, so that they could train for several years more. Shrek City's city defense army had quite a reputation. They had only participated in a little more than 10 wars across their 10,000-year history, but they accomplished feats and miracles that shook the entire continent in every instance. For example, when the Sun-Moon continent clashed with the Doluo continent all those years ago, the Sun-Moon continent started a holy war. The Sun-Moon continent's fighting style, with all their soul tools, was too unique at that time, and they successively defeated the Doluo continent's native empires across many battles. Back then, Shrek Academy had deployed 3,000 men from their city defense army. These men were known as Shrek's army, and they had hurried to the front lines. They only had 3,000 men, but they relied on themselves and the terrain to forcefully barricade the Sun-Moon Empire's great army for 15 days. They gave the Doluo continent's various empires sufficient time to gather their armies, and gave everyone the chance for one last stand. The Doluo continent's native empires emerged victorious in the end. Shrek's army had enjoyed their stellar reputation across the continent from that moment onwards, and it was considered a glorious thing to become part of Shrek City's city defense army. Therefore, if the students from Shrek Academy's outer courtyard couldn't make it into the inner courtyard, they would try everything they could to join Shrek's city defense army to serve for at least 3 years. This experience would become a glorious mark on their resumes, and greatly beneficial for their future development. Shrek City was just a city after all, so it wasn't easy to sustain an army of 100,000 soldiers. It was easier for those soul masters who made up 30% of the army, because they came from the academy, so they didn't receive any special treatment. However, the other 70%, who were just normal soldiers, Shrek City had to pay from its own pockets. Large cannons lined the top of the city wall, pointed far into the distance. All kinds of stationary soul cannon shells were lifted to the top of the city wall, and 3,000 soul masters took but a mere 15 minutes to assemble. Everyone was already on top of the city wall, and they were all preparing for battle in their respective positions. Of the remaining 7,000 soldiers, or auxiliary soldiers to be exact, 3,000 served as one-to-one fallbacks for these soul masters, while the remaining 4,000 soldiers prepared to reinforce their comrades. The southern side of the city was their main defense zone. There was a lot less manpower assigned to the other 3 sides, but the number of defensive soul tools allocated were the same. When necessary, soul masters could rapidly switch positions to the other sides and operate those soul tools. However, Shishing didn't have to worry about the other 3 sides of the city wall for now. Over on Shrek Academy's side, teams of students from the outer courtyard were proceeding toward the city walls on every other side as quickly as they could. Even though they were all younger than 20, they had been through strict and rigorous training, and they had no trouble operating typical soul tools. This was especially true after the Tang sect managed to create sealed milk bottles, so even normal citizens could operate low-tier soul tools, let alone these soul masters, who all had at least 2 soul rings. Shrek Academy's inner courtyard didn't idle around either. Shadow after shadow swiftly proceeded from the eastern side of the city towards the southern city wall. Shishing planted his hands on the battlements and gazed into the distance. He could taste bitterness from the corner of his mouth. How many years has Shrek City not participated in a war, and now it's here? He couldn't remember, but what he could remember was that the previous 2 city defense officers didn't participate in a single war. He had been elected for only 3 years, and he had almost struck the jackpot. No, he truly did strike the jackpot. Traces of their enemies gradually appeared across the horizon. Which force across the entire continent could cause the skies to change, and could stomp towards Shrek City's great army with such fanfare? Only an empire could create a force on such a scale. However, How could the Doluo continent's 3 native empires make a move against Shrek City? If so, what other entities besides empires could do something like this? There was only one other place, and it was a place that was more frightening than any of the 3 native empires. The army from that place wasn't very intelligent, but they possessed impressive fighting instincts. They were born with a taste for blood and an inclination to kill, and they were full of hatred for humans. Almost every single individual in that army was powerful, and there were almost endless numbers of them, while some of the continent's strongest individuals were behind them, holding down the fort. Yes, this frightening power came from Shrek Academy's neighbor. Shrek had encountered them many times in the past, and almost every single member from Shrek Academy had been to this place, the Great Star Doe Forest. The beast tide was here. Masses of soul beasts that dotted the sky until it turned black were gradually bearing down on Shrek City. They weren't moving very quickly, but they were organized and disciplined. The soul beasts fanned forward, moving forward almost in tandem with the dark clouds in the sky. Gentle winds gusted through the air, and the faint smell from these soul beasts gradually traveled to the top of Shrek City's wall. Shishing was a title Doluo, considered one of the strongest individuals in the world today. However, he stared at the beast wave that was just so tremendous, and he couldn't help but lick his lips as he drew a cold breath. Why were the Great Star Doe Forest's soul beasts going crazy? What happened, exactly, that triggered them to launch an invasion? The Great Star Doe Forest had been very peaceful in recent years, and nobody had heard of anyone killing 100,000-year soul beasts in the forest. The Great Star Doe Forest's core region had developed rapidly over the past few hundred years, and countless powerful individuals had emerged from within. Even Shrek Academy's inner circle wouldn't venture into that place for no good reason, while Shrek City and the Great Star Doe Forest had been enjoying peace for the past centuries. So why were they doing this? Why did the Great Star Doe Forest launch an invasion on such a large scale, and why were they advancing on the city like an army? This couldn't have been instigated by a small group of soul beasts. The army of soul beasts seemed endless, and without those few who resided in the slaughtering grounds mobilizing them, this army of soul beasts wouldn't appear on such a large scale. The beast army's front lines were now less than 10 kilometers away from Shrek City's southern city wall. They maintained their steady forward movement, while the dark clouds above their heads gradually blanketed the sky above them. The closer they came, the more pressure could be felt on the top of the city wall. If Shrek's city defense army hadn't been elite and outstanding, if another normal army was here, they would probably have tucked tail and run away in fear. There was an uncountable number of soul beasts in this army. Right at this moment, shadow after shadow descended from the sky and landed on top of the southern city wall. The leading person was tall, and messy white hair draped behind his head as he stepped towards the battlements with a solemn look on his face. He was Shrek Academy's true number one individual, the master of the Sea Gods Pavilion, Elder Xian. The Sea Gods Pavilion's other elders followed behind Elder Xian. Everyone was on the scene, including the Academy's 2 deans, Yang Xiaozhe and Xian Lina. The only person who wasn't here was the Sea Gods Pavilion's youngest and weakest member, Huo Yuhao. More than 40 students from Shrek Academy's inner courtyard followed behind the elders from the Sea Gods Pavilion. Shrek Academy's teachers were split evenly into 3 groups, and they proceeded to the city's 3 other walls to command the outer courtyard students, who were stationed there. They were most familiar with those students, and hence the teachers commanding them would be most convenient and suitable. Elder Xian gazed into the distance, and his expression instantly became even blacker than before. He had risen into the sky before this to check out the situation, and only afterwards did he release that emergency signal. At this moment, the Soul Beast army was a lot closer to Shrek City, and Elder Xian was very clear about how dire their situation was. He was the only one who had gone through the previous beast tide among the various elders from the Sea Gods Pavilion. However, the situation that they were facing right now was more perilous than the previous invasion. Elder Xian didn't have any time to contemplate why the Great Star Doe Forest would suddenly launch a beast wave, and why they would come to Shrek City first. The only thought in his mind was if Shrek Academy could defend themselves against an enormous army that consisted of more than 100,000 soul beasts. During the previous beast wave, Shrek City had released a call for help as soon as they could. Elder Mu was the one directing things over in Shrek Academy, and they had the body sect helping them out. Even though the body sect and Shrek Academy weren't on good terms, they had good chemistry and teamwork during that incident. They had managed to hold out until sufficient reinforcements had arrived, and only then did they stop those soul beasts from advancing. Eventually they signed a peace treaty with the savage beasts. However, the soul beasts had gone against their treaty on their own initiative, and had launched a beast wave against Shrek City. Elder Mu was no longer here, and they didn't have the body sect to help them this time. Even though Shrek City had a lot more soul tools right now compared to back then, could they really hold off such a terrifyingly huge army of soul beasts? The Sea God's pavilion's several elders also looked very grave as they stared at the army in front of them. Elder Song arrived beside Elder Xian, and he lowered his voice as he said, "Why haven't we seen any omens or warnings, and yet the Great Star Do Forest launched a beast wave against us? What is happening, exactly?" Elder Xian lowered his voice and said, "There was an omen, don't you remember? Several days ago, a mass of blood clouds appeared above the Great Star Do Forest. I'm afraid this incident has something to do with that. Can it be that one of the Great Star Do Forest's important soul beasts, or perhaps a certain savage beast, has been killed by human soul masters, and they are infuriated because of that? The peace treaty that we signed back then stated that we could not attack the savage beasts, and those fellows who direct things inside the Great Star Do Forest have always been honorable. It seems like something big must have happened." Elder Song tilted her head and said, "We can't start the battle without knowing what's going on. We have to ask them clearly before anything else. I'm afraid the beast god, Di Qian, is personally directing an army of this scale." Elder Xian squinted as he gazed into the clouds above. His right there, right next to him, is the golden-eyed Black Dragon King. Who else could muster a force such as this? Let me go and meet him, and I'll ask about what exactly has happened. Elder Song was a little worried as she said, "You must be careful, Elder Xian. With Di Qian's cultivation, even Elder Mu back then was weaker than the beast god. He is the world's #1 soul beast, and the leader of the 10 great savage beasts isn't someone who's easy to interact with." Elder Xian smiled plainly and answered, "So what if he's not easy to interact with? Shrek's honor and glory are up to us to uphold and defend. I will protect Shrek City as long as I have one breath remaining, and I will not let these brutes invade us. I'm going up, you'll take over command." Elder Xian took a step out as he spoke, and he just stood on the battlement like that as he stretched his arms to both sides and howled into the sky. Mu, a dense and thick sound wave, like a torrential wave, burst forth with a powerful aura from Elder Xian's body. This ferocious roar forcefully intimidated, and caused the army of soul beasts in the distance to pause. Elder Xian's body transformed into a ray of golden light, and surged into the sky, like a shooting star, as he blazed a trail of crystal yellow flames. Furthermore, this sphere of yellow light became larger in volume as it rose through the sky, and it quickly covered the sky above Shrek Academy with yellow hues. Yellow light stretched across the sky, which sparkled continuously as it went straight for those black masses of dark clouds without showing any weakness at all. Elder Xian's move reinvigorated Shrek City's morale and aura, and everyone widened their eyes as they looked on, especially the students from the outer courtyard. They would possibly only get this one chance in their lifetimes to witness this showdown between some of the strongest individuals in the world, and the excitement in their hearts far exceeded their anxiety. A colossal shadow over 100 meters long flickered amidst that golden light. Dragon patterns webbed over its enormous frame, and its twin horns pointed towards the sky. It was Elder Xian's mighty martial soul, the godly Dao Tai Bu. Elder Xian hadn't made that step into godhood yet, but he was the Dao Tai Doluo, a powerful rank 98 soul master. He could still put up a fight against the Dragon Emperor Doluo and the Darkness Holy Dragon, Long Xiaoyao. The yellow colors high up in the sky quickly intertwined with the ink-like black luster. The black colors paused momentarily before they collided violently with the yellow clouds, and the sky dimmed and brightened alternately as they clashed against each other, powerful auras colliding incessantly. What was even stranger was that no matter how they clashed, their auras didn't affect the army of soul beasts, or Shrek City beneath them. "Come out and talk, Di Qian." Elder Xian's deep and dense voice echoed through the heavens. Even though he was the only one talking, everyone from Shrek City and the army of soul beasts could hear him clearly. "You're the Dao Tai." Another ice-cold voice resonated across the skies in similar fashion. However, when this voice appeared, the final sounds of Elder Xian's voice were instantly shattered, as if someone had forcefully cut him off. Black clouds riled up vigorously, and an enormous dragon whose size couldn't be distinguished shimmered amidst the dark clouds. Its entire body was covered with pitch-black scales, but it shone with dark purple colors within those dark clouds. "Yes, it's me. Di Qian, you have gathered so many soul beasts from the Great Star Do Forest to Shrek Academy without any consideration of the consequences. Why have you done this?" Elder Xian asked loudly with a deep voice. Di Qian's ice-cold voice could be heard once more. Why? You despicable humans are actually asking me why. Over these years, when have humans ever stopped harming and killing us soul beasts? Soul beasts have been living in seclusion within habitats like the Great Star Doe Forest, but humans have never stopped disturbing us. Humans have been killing my kin and my brethren, and humans have mutilated their corpses so as to boost their own strength. Soul beasts have been dwindling in number from the beginning to the end, but there are more and more soul masters. If this is allowed to continue, in the long run, soul beasts will be extinct one day. Elder Xian thought for a moment and said, we are equally aware of this problem. Di Qian, you have to understand that humans don't wish for that to happen, either. However, the existence of martial souls has formed this food chain, and soul masters have to hunt and kill soul beasts to obtain soul rings if they want to become stronger. We are thinking of anything we can do to substitute soul rings, and we are in the midst of such research right now. For now, however, it seems like there are still sufficient numbers of soul beasts. Furthermore, are you saying that soul beasts haven't killed humans before? The number of humans who have ventured into your habitats and gained something are far fewer than the number of soul masters that soul beasts have murdered. This matter has always been mutual. Furthermore, have you forgotten about the peace treaty we signed back then? You are the beast god. Will you go against your word? Di Qian laughed coldly and said, don't try to lie to me. The dragon god Doluor didn't find a way to substitute soul rings back then, and I don't believe you guys can do that, either. As for the treaty, you have the audacity to talk to me about that. If your memory still serves, you should remember that there was an extremely important existence within the Great Star Doe Forest, the three-eyed golden lion. The three-eyed golden lion. Elder Xian almost felt his heart skip a beat when he heard this name, and an ominous feeling filled his heart. Many soul masters were unfamiliar with this name, the three-eyed golden lion, and even the elders within the Sea God's pavilion didn't know about her existence. However, Elder Xian knew her very well, and he had seen her before with his own eyes. He had even helped Huo Yuhao obtain part of the three-eyed golden lion's power of destiny. Of course, he understood how important the three-eyed golden lion was to the Great Star Doe Forest, and even the 5 great savage beasts, who anchored down the forest's slaughtering grounds were, in practice, not as important as the auspicious beast. The three-eyed golden lion's existence had allowed the Great Star Doe Forest to develop rapidly for the past 10,000 years. Human soul masters had hunted and killed soul beasts continuously, but the forest's overall number of soul beasts and their overall strength wasn't weakened. In fact, the soul beast's overall strength had increased. In some sense, the three-eyed golden lion was equivalent to an amplifier for the Great Star Doe Forest, and her existence was the reason why the forest had the strength and scale that they did today. Back then, the three-headed scarlet devil mastiff, who was one of the slaughtering ground's 5 savage beasts, had personally stayed by her side to protect her. Some things happened to the three-eyed golden lion. Elder Xian asked with a tinge of incredulity. He didn't quite believe it. The three-eyed golden lion was exceptionally important to the Great Star Doe Forest, and savage beasts had always personally protected her. Her status within the forest was comparable to Di Qian's, and even though her strength was nowhere near that of the savage beasts, her status was equivalent to that of the father of a reigning emperor. Humph! Di Qian grunted coldly, and the dark clouds in the sky seemed to become a little gloomier than before. The humans and soul beasts beneath him all began to feel their hearts beat faster. Unless something's happened to the auspicious beast, why do you think I would go to such lengths and such trouble to start a war? Why do you think I would risk the lives of my kin and brethren to start a war like this? A few days ago, I felt the aura of the auspicious beast's death. The huge black dragon circling around inside the dark clouds paused as he reached his last words, and 2 golden spheres sparkled brilliantly. They were his eyes. The beast god Di Qian's original body was a golden-eyed black dragon king, who had more than 800,000 years of cultivation. The black dragon's blood was the purest next to the golden dragon and the silver dragon, and Di Qian was likely to be the only living being across the entire continent who was a pureblood black dragon. He had been alive for 800,000 long years, and he had seen almost every change that had happened to the continent. Once that powerful aura was released, Elder Xian felt his scalp tense, even with his cultivation rank. The auspicious beast is dead. Elder Xian drew a cold breath. If that was the case, the Great Star Doe Forest would have good reason to launch a beast wave like this. The auspicious beast was far too important, because she was connected to the future of the entire forest, and she was very beneficial to the savage beasts' chances of breaking through bottlenecks. This time, they were in deep trouble. Elder Xian took a deep breath. The yellow light around the godly Daotai bull became stronger at the same time as he said, "I'm very sorry, Di Qian, that the auspicious beast is dead. However, the auspicious beast has always been residing in the Great Star Do Forest, and she's personally protected by several of your strongest individuals. How could anything have happened to her? Are you saying that someone managed to kill the auspicious beast from underneath your protection?" The ferocity emanating from Di Qian's body receded a little. He muttered coldly, "Of course nobody would have been able to kill the auspicious beast inside the forest. The auspicious beast's status in the Great Star Do Forest transcended all else, and even I was unwilling to restrain her excessively. Not long ago, she used a fake body in closed-door cultivation, while her own body secretly slunk out of the forest. She should have entered the world of humans, and even individuals like us won't disturb her when she's in closed-door cultivation. Who would have expected that such grievous news would come several days ago?" The auspicious beast, the three-eyed golden lion, had departed the Great Star Do Forest, and had passed away in the human world. Elder Xian lowered his voice and said, "I express deep regret once more for the auspicious beast's death. However, since she met her demise after she left the forest, how can you be sure that us humans did her wrong? I can understand your sorrowful emotions, but you cannot use the lives of countless humans and soul beasts to wash away your grief." Ha 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 ha. The beast god, Di Qian suddenly laughed ominously, as if he had just heard some joke. "Nothing to do with humans. Do you know how the auspicious beast died? Let me tell you, my aura was intimately connected to that of the auspicious beast, and I could clearly feel the state that she was in when she died. She sacrificed herself for a human, and she willingly became someone's soul ring. How can you say, then, that this has nothing to do with humans?" "What?" Elder Xian couldn't maintain his composure anymore after this. Many different possibilities of how the auspicious beast might have met her demise had appeared in his mind over that short period of time. He understood, naturally, that the auspicious beast was likely to have died at the hands of a human soul master. However, exceptions could occur, and he was still thinking about how he could convince Di Qian to withdraw his army, when he was met with such a reply. Elder Xian's voice was evidently a little more rushed now. He said angrily, "Di Qian, even if you want to frame others for this, you have to find a reliable and believable reason. The Emperor Beast, the three-eyed golden lion, offered herself to a human soul master. Do you even believe your own words? You can try asking the other soul beasts in the forest, do they believe this? You are clearer than I am about what the Emperor Beast's existence entails. Could she even offer herself to a human?" Di Qian said coldly, "Nothing is impossible. The Emperor Beast was born with intelligence comparable to you humans, and she must have walked into the world of humans, because she was curious. The Emperor Beast was born from the destiny of the heavens, and she has always acted according to destiny. There are far too many things that can taint and pollute her in the human world, and problems appeared in the Emperor Beast's way of thinking because of these pollutions. Don't try to absolve yourself of responsibility. The only humans that the Emperor Beast saw before she left the forest were you and your students. I heard from the Scarlet King that, back then, one of your students interacted with her. I am very sure that whatever's happened to the Emperor Beast has something to do with that student of yours. Hand him over, and my army will not invade Shrek City. Otherwise, we will wash Shrek with blood, and we will exterminate everything and everyone." Elder Xian's attitude changed a little as he listened to Di Qian's words. There was no question that Huo Yuhao was the person who Di Qian was talking about. Elder Xian was the perpetrator back then, so he knew, as he was the one who had helped Huo Yuhao obtain part of the three-eyed golden lion's power of destiny, and he was the one who had helped Huo Yuhao open his eye of destiny. Does this mean that the three-eyed golden lion offered herself to Yuhao? He thought about Huo Yuhao going missing recently in the Sun Moon Empire. He's likely to have encountered danger of some kind. Perhaps, what Di Qian has said isn't impossible. However, when did the three-eyed golden lion get together with Yuhao? Why has he never mentioned this to me before? Di Qian, I cannot agree to your request. That student you're looking for isn't even in the academy, and even if he were, how could I give one of my academy's students to you? Elder Xian's voice became plain and composed. He was very clear, as he watched the way Di Qian was behaving, that the Beast Wave's invasion was inevitable. Even if he gave Huo Yuhao to Di Qian, the Emperor Beast's death was enough to instigate these savage beasts' aggression and hostility. Even if they didn't attack Shrek, they would attack other cities, and Shrek would have to take on the responsibility of fighting them off. Di Qian's voice instantly grew cold. Does this mean that you're not willing to hand that rascal over at the cost of endless lives and bloodshed? Elder Xian muttered coldly, you wish to fight, then let's fight. How can you step over Shrek's glory as and when you want to? You're courting death. Di Qian roared furiously into the sky, and dark clouds surged as he shouted ferociously at the top of his voice, charge. The soul beasts that had initially stopped outside Shrek City now began to move like a tsunami when they heard Di Qian's order. All kinds of lights shone from these soul beasts, and every single one was filled with manic and crazy auras as they charged toward Shrek City. You dare, Di Qian! Elder Xian howled as the godly Daotai bull's colossal frame began trotting through the sky. He stepped on yellow clouds as he charged toward Di Qian with his twin spiral horns. Di Qian's tremendous dragon wings stretched out as dark clouds rose from behind his back. He opened his mouth, and a huge black pillar of fire more than 10 meters in diameter erupted toward Elder Xian. Elder Xian's horns glowed at the same time, and his dark brown horns swiftly became glossy and transparent, as if they were sculpted from diamonds. Two diamond-like beams of light merged into one and went straight for that black flame pillar. Boom! The mountains trembled and the earth shook in that moment. Even though they were fighting thousands of meters in the sky, the world quivered along with their collision. Di Qian didn't move an inch, and hovered in the distance, but Elder Xian's forward momentum was halted forcefully after this clash. Evidently, there was still quite a gap between Elder Xian's cultivation and that of Di Qian. Di Qian's large golden eyes flowed with disdain and indifference as he flapped his huge dragon wings toward Elder Xian. The sky turned black in that instant. The yellow clouds were initially at a standoff against dark clouds, but this situation changed in the blink of an eye. Dark clouds loomed over the skies, and everything that was yellow was immediately swallowed in that moment. Even Elder Xian's body suffered the same fate, and the great earth was covered in darkness as countless purple lightning bolts flickered and sparkled amongst the dark clouds. That immense pressure sufficiently portrayed the spectacular sight of the dark clouds bearing down on a city and threatening to overwhelm it. The spectacular sight made Shrek City's city defense army and everyone from Shrek Academy feel stifled. The number one soul beast in the world, the leader of the 10 great savage beasts, the beast god, the dictator of the great Star Doe forest, the Golden Eyes Black Dragon King, there were just too many titles on Di Qian's head. This time, the death of the Emperor Beast, the three-eyed golden lion, had finally infuriated this insanely powerful soul beast. He didn't hold back from the moment he made his first move. Waves of dull thunder boomed continuously from the sky. However, the sky was still covered in darkness. Even the outer courtyards, junior students, could tell from this situation that Elder Xian was absolutely the weaker one, and at a complete disadvantage. That was the truth. Di Qian was the Doluo continent's strongest soul beast, and he was possibly the strongest individual across the entire Doluo continent. Even if the Darkness Holy Dragon, the Dragon Emperor Doluo, Long Xiaoyao was here, he would probably be no match for Di Qian. He was an ultimate Doluo, but his martial soul, the Darkness Holy Dragon, originated from the Black Dragon race. In terms of blood purity, how could he compare to Di Qian? Back then, when the Radiant Holy Dragon, the Dragon God Doluo Mu Yen, was fighting against Di Qian, he had relied on the fact that his element was a natural counter to Di Qian's element, and he was only a little weaker. If Long Xiaoyao had been in his position, he would probably be in a worse situation than Elder Mu was. He was absolutely no match for Di Qian in control over darkness. If Elder Xian couldn't hold Di Qian back, and if he eventually perished in his fight against Di Qian, who else in Shrek City could hold back the strongest individual in the world? Would Shrek City really be laid to ruin? What are you looking at? Prepare your defenses, everyone. First wave of soul tools, prepare to fire. All soul masters to their battle stations, and heed my commands. Time Doluo Shushing shouted angrily, and his valiant voice finally pulled everyone out from those stifling and suppressing sensations. Morale would always be imperative in war. The faith for victory would exist if morale was high, and without morale, even an endless army might not be able to defend against their enemies. Shrek's city defense army had never lacked morale, because the glory and honor from Shrek's previous generations shone on them, and this glory became their greatest courage. They were faced with a formidable army of at least 100,000 soul beasts, and the Daotai Doluo was clearly at a disadvantage against the beast god in the sky. But even so, The eyes of every soldier in Shrek's city defense army quickly became sharp and determined under Shishing's command. This was a battle that they couldn't lose, because loss meant death. This was a fight between humans and soul beasts, and surrender was never an option on such a battlefield. Nobody had to explain for everyone to understand that they had to fight to the very end in this battle. They could only beat back these soul beasts and protect Shrek City in order to survive. Soul Masters hustled, and heavy cannons were swiftly pulled into position, their mouths of their metal cannons pointed outside of the city. The southern city wall was opposite the Great Star Doe Forest. Therefore, the best and strongest defenses were established on the southern city wall. The Zhuge divine crossbow cannons that the Tang sect had manufactured were all successfully loaded, and every cannon came with 4 sealed milk bottles. Only the Zhuge divine crossbow cannons on Shrek's city wall had such a configuration, and each cannon was almost twice as costly as the cannons that the Tang sect had sold to the Star Luo and Heavenly Soul empires. These defensive soul tools that the Tang sect had crafted for Shrek City were still sold at cost. There were 32 Zhuge divine crossbow cannons on the southern city wall. They were arranged in one row, and were very intimidating. These cannons were all Class 6 soul tools, and while they were very costly, they were also very powerful, and they could be used continuously in battle for a long time. The students from Shrek Academy's inner courtyard swiftly dispersed along the southern city wall under the command of the Sea God's Pavilion's various elders. None of these people had participated in the defense against the previous beast wave, but the Academy had gained much experience, and learned much about how to fight against beast waves after their previous battle. There was no question that Shrek City's combined strength was a far cry from that of the Great Star Doe Forest. They could only rely on their tough city wall, and Shrek Academy's accumulated wisdom and experience over the past 10,000 years. Therefore, the city wall could never be allowed to break in their defensive endeavors, because everything would be over if the city wall was broken through. The soul beasts' fighting style would always be different from that of humans. Normal soul beasts had subpar intelligence, and they only knew how to charge around violently, so there was no way they could follow complicated orders. For those savage beasts who were at a higher tier, they possessed intelligence comparable to humans, but they were proud and arrogant by nature, so they weren't willing to use any tricks or schemes. The Great Star Doe Forest's soul beasts thought they were invincible in their hearts. Because of this, their fighting style was very simple: attack the city head-on. This fact was one of the most important points that Shrek Academy had concluded for specifically fighting against soul beasts after the last beast wave. Shrek City's southern city wall didn't even have a gate, and that was so they could defend against soul beasts attacking them from this front. The city wall had been heightened and thickened continuously over many years, and the city wall's surface had been constructed with special materials and methods. Even soul beasts, who had more than 10,000 years of cultivation, would need a very long time to damage the city wall. Other than that, Shrek City had many unique advantages, and they wouldn't hold anything back against the beast wave. Zhuge divine crossbow cannons, first wave, fire! Shishing shouted at the top of his voice. The beast wave surged forward, charging within 3 kilometers of Shrek City in the blink of an eye. The closer they came, the clearer their frightening numbers became. This video will end here.